Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to WPF Drizzle Division PRs. I am your host, Jace, disgraced former mod, left with my head down, but they couldn't have enough of losing me, and so now I'm back. That didn't make sense. Anyways, I'm here. It's Jace. In addition, we have Radlup. Radlup, do you want to say
hello? Hello. What's up, guys? Greatest BDT player ever at your service.
You were talking about Vinny, right?
No way.
Oh, well, Vinny's next. So, Vinny!
Oh my god, hi. Hello.
And of course, we couldn't have Drizzle PRs without the Mogoat himself.
Oh my god, hey!
Oh my god, hey. Hopeless is also here, but is not able to talk because he's a loser.
No, because he has Jewish neighbors that have sex.
Nobody has!
Cut that out,
No.
cut that out.
I'm sorry for the viewers. I'm not cutting any of this
It's
out.
not controversial in the slightest.
There's no cuts.
But he gave great input into these power rankings. So a few notes. We're going to be presenting these power rankings in reverse order, starting with number 16, going to number 1. On your left of your screen, you'll see a blue box with positive notes and a red box with negative notes, or criticisms, we could say. And keep in mind that, we had to take a quick look at all of these teams. There's so much depth and nuance that comes with the VGC draft, especially in this Natex format where Pokemon have so many moves and so many possibilities for what they can do that I'm sure we missed a bunch of stuff. And all of these drafts really have something incredible to provide. And honestly, all of them could have a totally great chance at taking home the championship. You'll see from the 16th team that even the 16th team has a bunch of great Pokemon with great synergy. So really, it's just little nitpicks. And the last thing I want to know before we get started is there is this section with these notes on the left-hand side, and maybe the scribe named Jace got a little sloppy with writing notes down as things went on. So if there's more notes in the red than the blue, that doesn't mean your team is worse. That doesn't mean your team has a whole bunch of problems and it's only negatives. It just means that was the things that were being screamed into my ear at the time. But with all that out of the way, let's get right into it and start off with our number 16 coach, Amarillo. So Amarillo's draft is our lowest rated draft, but you can see there's a bunch of great Pokemon here with clear things that they're doing. So you have this Raichu supporting Togekiss and Araquanid with Lightning Rod support. You've got great Trick Room setters to enable this Araquanid to go hard and wide guard as well, to give lots of support to this team in addition to the multiple Follow Me users that it has. And then Radlup, I think, if you want to jump in.
Yes, of course. I think this team is really great. It has some wonderful redirection. Togekiss is behind Jirachi in being the best redirector in the game, in my opinion. Then it has Raichu, also has Lightning Rod, so you don't even need redirection all the time. And Magmortar is a great cheap pick for additional redirection. My biggest gripe with the team is the lack of offense. It's going to rely on Araquanid and Mega Medicham for a lot of that. But if it can get through with those two, it's definitely going to be a scary team to break defensively.
So I'm going to be the negative Nancy here, and I'm going to start negative. So the biggest problem we have with this team is actually that it has support overload. If you look at the first two mons and then Magmortar, they're all there for Follow Me. This team has a very big overlapping roles, and it leaves it lacking in places like the offense, which Radlet mentioned. And for example, the fast mode, the fastest mon's Raichu, and the Tailwind support, while Togekiss is good, it does have to fill a lot in this team, and overall just leaves this team kind of lacking in a lot of what we wanted to see. And then we'll pass it to Mojo to wrap it up.
Yeah, one thing that I did want to note about that I like about this team, the use of having a Defiant Mon alongside Mega Medi and Araquanid can be just generally really helpful, because Mega Medi is a mon that really wants to get intimidated, just due to its pure damage output. So getting a Defiant Mon alongside that is just in general going to be very helpful for you to kind of mitigate that. I think the team looks like it's going to be fun to use at points, just from having talked to Amarillo himself, and I know that he's looking forward to using this. So I'm very interested to see what he gets to do with this.
All right, so there's Amarillo's team. Again, like I said, lowest ranking on this, but that does not mean it's a bad team. That doesn't mean we don't believe in the team. And I should remind you all, as I'm sure everyone watching this video has seen many power rankings videos before, we are not ranking the coaches, just the drafts they put together. We all know that there are some coaches, I won't name names, but people like Hopeless, who can put together just a terrible, disgusting draft, or Ninjosh, and still make finals. Moving on to our next lowest coach, number 15, Oren Latios. So this team this is a man after my own heart. I love so many of the Pokemon on here. Lilligant plus Torkoal is such a powerful, explosive combination. You also have Heatran getting its eruptions powered up, so you have 2 different Pokemon here who can fire off these incredibly powerful spread eruption moves, in addition to some great support with Togetic and Murkrow, Intimidate from Arbok, and other Pokemon to round it out. The big issue with this team that we're probably going to talk about more is that you have a Torkoal on here, which is such a great Trick Room Pokemon, and your Trick Room setter is Deoxys Speed, the fast Trick Room setter in the game.
Yeah, I agree. I think Torkoal is just such a wonderful mon, especially in no max. If you don't got Flash Fire, switching into these eruptions is like almost impossible. It feels like being just a base 150 spread move. I just really think that he needs some more Trick Room support in order to get the real, the classic Sunroom draft, off to Vinny.
Yeah, so add on to that. So when you're talking about the powerful eruptions, this team does lose to Wide Guard very hard. Is another problem we felt with it. So when you have your 2 eruption spammers and then you add on Zygarde with 1,000 arrows spamming, and that's your majority of your offense because it's trying to play around that stun mode, the rest of your offense is a lot more niche, and therefore you're losing to one single move that this team can't really punish. And Mojo to finish us off.
Yeah, and I definitely think that what has been said about Wide Guard in terms of this team is very true, and I agree with that statement, but I do think that it also pressures the opponent's team to run things like that and kind of work around that a lot more. So I think it'll be interesting to sort of see how it ends up working in the season, because I think that just in general, obviously, Eruption spam is strong. There's nothing to say against that. So it'll be definitely to see about who Orn goes against and how they're able to work around it, because I think that some matchups will definitely be decided based off of lead, and I think that can cause some major issues in terms of matchups against this team.
Yep. And one last thing that we forgot to mention is that this team gets fucking bodied by ground types. Moving on to Shiny Pika's team. This is a team that is honestly after my own heart. I love so many of the Pokemon on this team. And they do have really explosive power if they get things set up right. Mega Camerupt being a very strong attacker. Deoxys attack, obviously, it has an attack in the name. And one of my favorite, I think, one of the biggest value picks in the whole board, Throw, can be basically just Conkeldurr for 3 points. One thing, though, that could be an issue is that you have this Indeedee female, and Deoxys really needs this reduction support. Camerupt really needs Trick Room from Jellicent, and if these Pokemon don't have their little buddy next to them, they get totally out of position.
Oh, wait.
So could you swap the team?
I forgot to swap the teams. I'm so sorry. I'm throwing.
It's fine.
Anyways, yeah. I agree with the points Jay said. This team, it just looks really scary. It has some insane support mons in Indeedee and Grimmsnarl, and while people might think, oh, Grimmsnarl and Psychic Terrain, that's not going to work out, it works out more often than you think. You're not always going to have both Grimmsnarl and Indeedee up, so whichever one is on the board is going to cause a lot of trouble, and you're going to have to be able to predict which one's coming out and be able to plan around it accordingly, which is going to be very tough to play with some of these heavy hitters.
So for me, I personally really like a lot of the modes this team puts up with the Tar Tricker mode and then the Size Spam mode with the good support options like Grimmsnarl and Mence even being a neutral option. The issue comes in when your Size Spam mode isn't optimal because you kept the Deoxys attack, which I get you felt that Hopeless was baiting you, but your Size Spammer doesn't have Expanding Force, which is a huge throw, and it leaves the team feeling disjointed and that it's going to be really reliant on this TR mode. And that's where my big issue comes in with this team.
Yeah, I would tend to definitely agree. I think picking up the Megazam is not a throw in terms of this. I think it's just generally pretty good. Even if it means that you can't run Megazam and Megarupt in the same match, you can still run it in the same game together. And something that we definitely didn't even touch on when we were talking about these before was just the fact that Mega Camerupt Credilli together is going to be really nice in a Trick Room mode, just to sort of redirect those water moves. But I think that this team, it'll be kind of cool to see what Shani can do. Especially with Throw. I very much agree with Jace on Throw being a really cool mon, and I think it gives a lot of nice options for this team, especially in sort of how some of the teams can sort of try to counter this. Throw sort of helps a lot.
Yeah, Throw's going to be crucial to have that wide guard to prevent Deoxys and Camerupt getting messed up by stuff like Muddy Water or other spread moves.
Yeah,
and also opposing Size Spam.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can see your opponent throwing on there. Their expanding force. Your only real resist is the Grimmsnarl. All right, moving on to Mick's team. Now, Mick oftentimes has really, really great drafts, often starring Magmar. But this time, we weren't sure that it was really going to be quite as cohesive. The best thing that I can say about this draft is that Kartana is super well supported. Nobody is bringing Intimidate into this team with a Melodic and a Crobat and a Mamoswine and only a couple other physical attackers. And this team also has Magmar to redirect those Fire-type moves, and then a Melodic that can switch on Fire-type moves all day, as well as multiple fighting resists. And so Mick, using his Tailwind and his other Pokemon to position Kartana well, is going to be farming kills for this thing.
Yeah, I agree. This team, it's just very scary offensively with Latios, Kartana, Mamoswine. My biggest issue with this, honestly, is other than Mamoswine, really, he gets pretty walled by steel types. Like, Mega Latios and Kartana, both all 4 stabs get walled just by steel. Crobat gets walled by steel as well, and the ice moves from Mamoswine is also walled by steel. So I think it's going to be very tough. With your only answers to steel being Magmar and Scrafty, it's going to be kind of tough in that division. But other than that, I think this is a very strong team.
So for me to add on to it, I really, again, like those guys, like the offensive core, and I think the offensive core is pretty well supported when you have ones like Megalodios that doesn't have to be forced into Tim, and Kartana, like Jay said, that doesn't have to be afraid of Intim, and then Mamo itself being very strong here. But I think that the issue then it comes is the lack of the off. It's beyond that because it's sport, and so you're really reliant on these specific pieces going in, and like Bradlip said, they have common weaknesses in mind, which this team kind of didn't cover up.
Yeah, and one thing that I saw when I looked at this team originally was I thought there were a lot of really, really strong mons like Megalodios, Kartana, Mamoswine, Melodic, all are really, really good in their own right. But the team did feel like super cohesive, aside from the stuff that Jace mentioned about Kartana support. It felt like there could have been like more mons to sort of bind them together. I don't know if I personally love Double Ground, Mamoswine, and Runa Regis. I think they're both like good mons their own right. I also do like the Runa Regis Marill together, though I personally would have gone with Azurill just because it's a little more funny. But yeah, no, I think this team definitely, it has potential in terms of its pure offensive output. So it'll be kind of cool to see what modes he can like put together, I think.
Right on. All right, moving on to our next coach, 200 Candies. If you may remember last season in Drought, 200 Candies was a newcomer, and his team seemed a little strange at first, being what looked like a rain team without an actual rain setter, but his team surprised everyone by being the most scary, beastly draft you can see. This season, we'll see if he's able to replicate that. He has a lot of cool, powerful pieces, Lando, Thundy, Clefairy, obviously, but it's hard to say whether or not these pieces are enough to really dominate. Because if you look at it, really, you've got 2 support Pokemon in Clefairy and Uxie, Registeel, who's an endgame on only, and then you have Gara, Coco, Thundy, Lando, as really the only, like, versatile, offensive, and bulky options.
Yeah, if anyone knows me, they know I'm Clefairy's biggest hater. I really hate Clefairy. I think it's just so expensive, and it's so bad. Yeah, that's all I have to say, honestly. The rest of the team is alright to me. I just hate Clefairy. That's all.
So I honestly really liked how this team started with the Double Genie. I thought it was really unique, and they actually worked pretty well together. Where I kind of got a bit thrown off with this team is the following up picks. I think the support options of this team are all really passive and defined. So you have Registeel, not Registeel, there's just not really support, but Clefairy, Uxie, Dracloak can't really come to games because of Badmon, and then Mienfoo. And then these ones are all really defined support, and you have your defined offensive ones, and it leaves this team kind of feeling in an odd place, in my opinion. But again, some of the offensive ones do have really good support with the Double Intim, the Prankster, the Eweb Coco. Again, it's more so those support mons that I'm not the biggest fan of.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I think that Mienfoo is definitely, like, for being a one-pointer, it has some pretty cool options, just in general. It being your only fake-out sort of sucks, just as a whole. I also, one thing about this team that I didn't love is the fact that one of your like Rising Voltage or like Electric Spammer isn't going to be boosted by Electric Terrain, aside from Rising Voltage obviously getting the boost from it, but it won't be getting the extra 30% from the Terrain, which sort of feels a little counterintuitive, but I get that it's also not meant to just be strictly that, like you have other plans for that. as a whole. Uxie definitely is another mon that I personally feel a little bit iffy on. I think that Uxie is definitely like a good mon in its own right in terms of being able to like support in some ways. But it sort of feels like, to me, it has a bit of a weird niche on this team.
Add on to that if you want. But so it's the TR mon on this team. It's kind of gonna have to be anti-tier for this team, but other than that, it really is kind of in a weird spot because it doesn't support the offense super well. Besides denying TR, because this team's TR mode is a single Registeel.
Anyways, we should move on to the next team. But just drought coaches, keep an eye out for this Dracloak, because no one on the PR team has any idea what the fuck it's doing here.
It's a ghost dragon.
But if you can see it at team preview, maybe it'll do something. Moving on to
Burr.
Sorry.
Ally switch go Burr.
Ally switch go Burr. Yeah, I mean usually it's a beat up Pokemon that's cheap and immune to fake out, but I don't know. Discount Dragapult does not mean it's good. Moving on to Avent. Avent's team, it's really cool. He's got a lot of these super duper good Pokemon that are specifically good in this non-max format. Blastoise, Mega Arrow, Lando, Volbeat, Lele, I think all fall under that same quality. And this team also is like quite versatile. A lot of these Pokemon are playing double duty. You have Blastoise functioning as a fantastic sweeper, obviously with Shell Smash, but it can also be super disruptive with Fake Out and Follow Me. Mega Arrow is going to be a super great Tailwind setter, but it can also do crazy things with Hone Claws or Dragon Dance, and its strong contact moves boosted by Tough Claws. As you go down the list, there starts to become some questions about maybe anti-synergies or what's going on here, but I still think this team does a lot of things right.
Yeah, my biggest issue with this team is no Trick Romancers. If you guys were watching the video, see I typed in Taunt right there, and apparently he has no Taunters on this team, which is kind of bizarre. It's kind of crazy. He has
3.
I typed Taunt in and it didn't.
That's my fault.
Okay, alright, so he has some Taunt. I thought Arrow got Taunt. I was tripping. But either way, like, he has very limited Trick Room counters. I think if he's playing a team with a strong Trick Room mode, it's going to be very tough. But other than that, I agree with Jay said. This is a very offensive, very wild. Like, it's going to be tough to switch in and out in front of, for sure.
I'll add to all of this. I do actually really like this team. I like the Blastoise pick, and it's very central for the team, and it does support a lot of the other options, but also gets supported. And I think this team offensively is probably one of the scariest in the division. Now, where that does have a bit of a downfall is with this Blastoise getting really pressured on this team. It does have to kind of be that main support piece with the follow me redirection, because a lot of these pieces like Lando, like Arrow, really need that support. But it also wants to go crazy and go smash, but kind of can't do that here.
Yeah, and if anyone knows me, you know that I'm going to be instantly looking towards Volbeat and saying it's the GOAT. So that being said, I think this team is number 1 in the PRs. I think this team looks like it's going to be a lot of fun to use. I think something we had talked about prior was the fact that Mega Aerodactyl and Volbeat are 2 pretty expensive Tailwind mons. Obviously, that's not all they do. They both do a lot more than that. But in like a much more like common sense, they both do a lot of Tailwind setting. And I assume that Mega Aerodactyl won't be doing a lot of that in this team. It'll be more of an offensive role, just as sort of like a cleaner, a sweeper, just doing whatever it can. And I think it definitely can do a lot. I also think that something that I had noted personally was that Psychic Terrain from Lele doesn't seem like it really benefits this team a ton. And in terms of, as we've mentioned multiple times before, getting rid of Trick Room or stopping Trick Room will be tough, to say the least.
Yep. All right, moving on to the next team, Purple Haze. This team, it's cool. It really only has like a few Pokemon on it. It just feels thin, especially because 2 of these Pokemon are Purugly and Duosion. But the top Pokemon that it does have are really good, and each of them has a clear and distinct role. Dragapult and Mega Blaziken being super fast sweepers, Zapdos being a strong all-arounder with Tailwind, Amoonguss obviously being a Rage Powder Spore bot, to help you identify which Pokemon on your opponent's side has the safety goggles that are inevitably coming every week to counter this Pokemon, and then leave it on the bench for the next 2 games. Crook having Intimidate, Diancie being the Trick Room setter. And then Empoleon, Purugly, and Duosion to kind of play these flex roles.
Yeah. I agree. I'm always a doubter of Amoonguss in draft just because, it's easy to counter, but at the same time, it forces you to bring a counter just because it's that threatening. This team is insanely scary with a wild fast mode with Dragapult, Mega Blaziken, Zapdos, and then having Amoonguss there is also going to be discouraging people from setting up Trick Room because you set up Trick Room now, you're just like opening yourself up to be spored. So I think this team is really solid here on both sides of the speed, honestly, and I think it's going to be tough to deal with.
So I do like what Rella mentioned about the Amoonguss actually being a threat in Trick Room, because I was going to say before that I don't really see a threat in Trick Room because this team has really good ways to set up Trick Room as reliable Trick Room sources. And with the Antsy being very good on this team just in general, if it wants to buff up the team's defense with Diamond Storm or like help Zapdos and Dragapult become very annoying to deal with, same with the like Blaziken, it does that, but it can also set up TR. And I do think I would have liked to see a bit more of an offensive TR1, but that's a bit of a like tight criticism within my opinion. Overall, I think this team's pretty strong. I'm very interested to see how Mega Blaziken does. We'll see with that.
Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting. Something that I had sort of looked at this team and sort of said that I think the first 5 and Diancie will be like generally the standard 6 to come to most games, and Polion, Prugley, and Duosion feel like they fit a lot less onto this team in terms of like they fill holes obviously, and that's very important. Another thing to note about this team that sort of is reflected on the types at the bottom, this team is pretty ice and ground weak. Obviously, like Empoleon's a really good ice resist, but outside of Empoleon and Thick Fat Purugly, Mega Blaziken is your only ice resist in terms of like things that are going to be coming to more of like a faster game. So that'll be interesting to see sort of how you work around that, especially with your redirector also being weak to ice. And then also in terms of ground, like Zapdos being the only thing that's a resistance or an immunity whatsoever is going to be really, really annoying. Ground is going to be pretty spammable against you.
Yep. All right. Our next coach we're going to be looking at is Alice Sabrina. Now, I helped Alice Sabrina out with this draft a little bit, just gave him some thoughts. And so I rate this team a lot higher because it's definitely after my own heart. We had a lot of disagreement over this Sneasel Cobalion core in particular. Obviously, Sneasel is cool and is able to beat up Arcanine and beat up Cobalion, but it can also do other things. Sneasel having the fast icy wind, having the fake out, being immune to fake out and intimidate itself. Cobalion can also do other things, being a sort of defensive pivot that can switch and take a lot of hits, also do a lot of damage, base 90 attack, but still close combat is a very strong stab, and it can do fast coaching on maybe a Rillaboom or an Arcanine. But overall, this team, it has a lot of the fundamentals in place. There might just be some things about it that could be improved in Grace or in free agency.
Yeah, I agree. I think this team is pretty cool. I'm not a huge fan of the Cobalion without Dynamax. You can't really take advantage of Justify it as well. You still can with the Sneasel, of course, but it's gonna be a little tougher. But I do love the core of Rillaboom, Arcanine, Gastrodon. That's such a great Fire, Water, Grass core. It doesn't really get much better than that in draft. Like defensively, Alice is gonna be able to just switch around all over the place, all over your team, and it's gonna be really annoying. And it's going to let him get the upper hand in those duels.
So I'll say for me, coming from last season of having Rilla Arcanine on my team, I think Rilla especially is a crazy mon, and this team kind of does put a lot of pressure on it, which is something that I do have a worry about because it is the major breaker here, besides the Mega Latios. And when I look at that though, the Rilla in itself is really useful for this team because, like they mentioned, the team does want to kind of play slow, and it does have the Snarl spam option as the stat reduction. It has these mons that can set up and recover, and I think this team could be really scary in a slow mode, but I'm worried when the game gets faster and this team has to compete with other teams' offenses.
Yeah, and in terms of just breaking potential, having Rillaboom Megalodios is really nice, but it felt like this team doesn't have like a ton of offense in its own right. With especially like the last like few mons just sort of feeling like obviously like they're there to fill like some sort of role, which is very important. But it sort of feels like a lot of them didn't necessarily have a place in terms of getting more damage out. Also, you have like just 2 pretty solid Trick Room setters on a team that doesn't really want to run that much of Trick Room, in Aromatisse and Audino. Also, Driftblim felt a little out of place on this. I get it's an unburdened spammer, I think that's really good in its own right, but the other thing is like its flying stab when it's out of Dynamax is just reduced to being Gust and Air Cutter, I'm pretty sure, which is not fun.
So I'll add to something that we did not mention is this team gets destroyed by flying types. It is no flying resist when you're on a Rilla team, and that is by far Rilla's biggest type weakness is flying types, and I do think that that is going to be a recurring issue for this team.
Main types aren't real without Dynamax.
True.
So true. Speaking of flying types, we forgot to mention this. There's actually another team in this division that's also super weak to flying. It's Mixed Team Radlib. If you want to pull it up for a second. If you look at Mixed Team as well, there is a whole ass 0 resists to it, and this team only has a Mamoswine to deal with it. At least Alice has a Charger Bug to deal with flying types.
Yeah.
Moving on to our next team, Lemuro. This team packs the threats like no other. I think at first glance, looking at this team, it's really stressful to prep for. Kind of reminds me of a Piranha Plants championship winning SPS team, if anyone remembers that. But you got a Urshifu, which probably the best mon in the format, if I'm being honest. You know, kind of one of those situations.
Big time, by the way.
But regardless, you got the Urshifu, you got the Canyon to deal with, which if you're unfamiliar with National Defects, is very strong in VGC. You got this super hard hitter Mega Beetle, super hard hitter Diggersby, Celesteela, which we know is monstrous. It can do massive damage with its Heavy Slam, it can do fucking weakness policy shit, it can do the Leech Seed bullshit as well, and then you got Talonflame and Gothorita to either trap you in and get murdered by the Murder Bear, or go fast and kill you before you have a chance to move.
I agree. I think my biggest issue with this team is if they can't get the Tailwind up, I feel like it's going to struggle a little bit with Urshifu and Volcanion being slower. It's going to be a little tough, and both of them are weaker on the Spadef side, so it allows you to pack those special threats a lot more comfortably here. So if opponents can stop the Talonflame from getting Tailwind up, or if they can match it with their own Tailwind and some faster mons, then it is going to be a little annoying on the offense here. But other than that, this team is very scary. Urshifu is one of the greatest mons here, and just overall, it's really tough. And Bronzor is the slowest speed swap in the game, if that interests you, you know? Pretty cool stuff.
So when I first looked at this team, I was like, what the fuck am I looking at? It looked so jank, but the more that I looked at it, the more I actually liked it. It has a lot of these really good support options, although like we mentioned, the Tailwind is really strong. The Fake Out game from Persian and the speed control on top of the Tailwind, very strong. This team with the Gothorita has the potential to play the slow game really well, or it also has the potential to play the fast game. And I think this makes this team overall very scary to prep for. A few things that does make that a bit more difficult though is when you look at the redirection in Tangela. That does slow down the fast mode a little bit, and it also means that like if you wanted to do a trigger mode, this team couldn't set that up. But it also can't set up a trigger mode because its Trick Room Sweeper is a Bergmite, the GOAT. But
Broken!
we're a little struggling. And the last thing I want to mention is I think this team's really weak to electric types, and I'm very scared for it if it faces a strong electric. Because that could completely put off it getting its Tailwind up as well, and like we said, Tailwind is important to this team getting, like, to winning the game.
Yeah, I don't want to be hearing any shit on Bergmite. Bergmite's the GOAT.
Yeah.
Bro, I love Avalugg.
No,
But
it's
I
not
definitely-
Avalugg though. It's,
Go.
Yeah,
it
it's
has
Bergmite.
base 59 attack. Can you ask for
Oh,
anything
that's
better
Yeah,
than base
it's-
and you have own
59?
tempo, you swagger yourself. Holy shit!
It's big time Bergmite, my homie in defense.
Yeah.
But the main thing about this team that I think I noted to myself was the fact that I think Gothorita was a fucking amazing pick with this team. Shadow Tag to really keep things in on all of the astounding offensive threats this team has, alongside Tailwind Talonflame will just be incredibly nice. I mean, also just like Gothorita Celesteela, just being able to trap shit in and leech seed it is going to be so fucking annoying for people to play against.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that I don't have to play against this team, because I would probably just like, I would probably FF after like turn 2 of that.
Yeah. All right. So that is
Yo.
Lemuro's team. You also have to remember, Gothorita Celesteela rhymes, which gives you extra style points. All right, moving on to Miso.
Not really.
Miso's team. Now, I think among our PR people, this was kind of
Said
the
Among
reverse of
Us.
Sabrina's team. I think I'm less hot on this team than a lot of the other judges here are.
How could you be less
obviously
hot?
you
There's a Zard Y.
It's really just me that's hot on this team.
Okay, well, regardless, I think Hopeless might have liked it a lot as well. This team
Maybe.
obviously does have really great Pokemon. Pretty much every Pokemon on this team, besides maybe the Shiftry and the Bastiodon, is a super valuable My main gripe with this team, really, is that pretty much all these Pokemon are one-trick ponies. You got Zard Y, which is really just spamming them fire attacks, Regieleki, which is pretty much just either Light Screen, Reflect, Light Play shit, or like Specs, Electric Move, Squeak and Tailwind, go down the line, kind of everything is the same deal. And maybe this is just an issue I have, but of the top 4 Pokemon, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, of the top 5 Pokemon, there's only 5 typings represented. And monotype Pokemon aren't the end of the world, but it is really important to have those additional stab typings in order to hit certain teams that have those issues. And if you don't have the ability to exploit those holes, then you may end up in a bad situation.
Yeah, I agree. My biggest issue with this team is there's no good partner to be next to Garchomp to click Earthquake. Like, except for Zard Y, other than that, Garchomp can't really click Earthquake that safely on this team, which is really unfortunate because it's not like he gets high horsepower or anything. His next best move is Stomping Tantrum, which is base 70 power, which is like the same...
75.
Base 75, which is the same amount of damage as Earthquake is, but only single target. So it's really a downgrade, I feel, that he doesn't have another solid flying or levitating Mon to be next to Garchomp.
So honestly, myself, I'm actually a decent fan of this team. I think Zardbylecki is terrifying, probably one of the strongest top 2 cores in the league. I do think that Miso did choose some interesting support options, but I overall think that they're solid. I'm not the biggest fan of the Suicune, but I do think stuff like the Shifter at the bottom end is so valuable to this team because it's offensively a threat in the stun, but it also gives him priority fake out, so he can pretty reliably make sure that his Zard or his Chomp and such, or his Alecki even, can get those hits off that they want to. And like for example, the Riolu pick provides him the redirection. He just has a lot of really cool support options on this team that people might not expect. And I think Chomp is insane on this team.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that, like, as I mentioned before, I'm, like, pretty gung-ho about this team. The main thing, obviously, I think that Zard Y and Alecki just together is such a fucking insane core. I think those two just alone can win matchups. One of my bigger gripes about this team is that it's pretty specially oriented in terms of attack. With, like, Zard, I mean, Alecki doesn't have to be, and then Sylveon, Suicune, like, they're gonna want to be pretty specially oriented. Like, you obviously have, like, Chomp, you have Shiftry, so it's not, like, the most, like, criminal offense in terms of having that many special attackers, and I do like the special attackers and the physical attackers that it has. Also to note, this team is pretty Edgequake weak, with, like, the only Mon that can really take that being Garchomp. Because, like, everything that, or the one thing that is immune to ground on this team, being Zard losing to rocks, and the other thing is Shiftry, which is frail as hell. So yeah, I mean, I'm very excited to see this team work. I think it's really, really strong. So I think it'll be fun.
Yep. And the worst thing about this team is that, unlike a lot of other teams like Radlup that have a shitter pick like Psyduck, this team's shitter pick is Bastiodon, which is not cute, it's not fun, it's not cool, it's just fucking lame. Okay,
it's better stack Attacka.
To Radlup, the Psyduck coach himself. Now, I love this team. This team makes me smile. The fact that you have a Thwackey and a Kecleon on here,
I was trying to make a Psyduck big.
It's gone. It's just fucking gone. Okay. Anyways, this team is really cool. I think one thing that I really love about this team is it feels like this team was able to extract more value from the draft board than a lot of these other teams do. Something like Miso's team, you know, it's got the threats we named, but Radlup's team, it feels like every single Mon here is a threat, is doing a lot, and you really have to be prepared for every single thing here. Obviously, the weakest link is this Psyduck, which is just going to be a Cloud9 user to counter certain weather teams, but besides that, every single thing here is going to be strong in games, which makes it really, really hard to prep for.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is the greatest team man has ever put together, in my opinion. I don't know why it's not number 1. If it was up to me, I would have put it at number 1. There's not a single weakness. Look at this. You got Mega Maw, and then you have 3 Levitators, Flash Fire, and 2 Fire Resists for Mega Maw. So good luck hitting that thing. Yeah, that's all I gotta say.
Okay, so I'm gonna come in and be a little negative. So first up, Cresselia. I hate this Mon. But I think this team in general, I like the ability that it can play both fast and slow, but my problem comes with the fact that both modes are not necessarily ideal.
You're not
When your
ideal.
slowest mon in Trick Room is that can like ideally support offensive in Trick Room is Marowak at 45 or Mawile at 50, it means that the team is gonna get undersped by a lot of Trick Room modes. And its fast mode is essentially just put on Pheromosa's back, but as well Hydreigon for being Tailwind. But what's the mon that's abusing the fast mode? I don't really see the best.
I'm
a
running
great mon to
252
abuse it.
speed Jolly Mega Mawile. Get out of my face.
Okay, no one asked, but overall this team, I do agree with Jace, has really strong mons, and I'm thinking like looking at this team, there's some to prep for.
Yeah, it has a lot of really strong offense that literally cannot be understated. One of my issues that I did have with this team is that it's like Trick Room is pretty physically.
Are you alive? Did I cut out? Let me pause. Sorry for the
All good.
pause. We're back. Go on.
Do
Yeah.
you know where it cut off?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he can just continue. It was just recently.
All right. Well, either way, Psyduck is just goated, as you can see by its two goated typings. I think this team will be a lot of fun. I would be personally very interested to use it because I love Pheromosa as well. I think it's really, really fun with all the speed swap that it has and all the different support moves, as well as just being able to run like offensive without really hindering its supporting capabilities. I think it's a really good time, and I think this team will be a lot of fun to use. Also, Chandelure is the GOAT.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Our next coach here is Strife or Phantom Strife. This team, I think we're in top 5 now. So this is number 5 on our ranking. And it's really good. It's really cool. It has crazy offense coming out here with the Garb, with the Greninja, with the Entei, even Dragonite as well. Ferrothorn, a great endgame Pokemon, a super clear core, a Fire, Water, Grass core of Entei, Ferrothorn, and Squirtle. Just kidding, Entei, Ferrothorn, and Greninja. Although this team does feel a little bit like it's built around Squirtle being the only fake out and they only follow me, and having such a good combos with stuff like Ferrothorn redirecting those fire moves. One other cool thing about this team is that a lot of teams have like one great Tailwind setter. This team has like 2 pretty solid Tailwind setters in Dragonite and Luxray. And so
Luxray?
In Dragonite and Gliscor, my bad. They're right next to each other. They're from Diamond and Pearl. Okay, just fucking let's move on, okay? What's cool about this team that I like a lot is that the speed control kind of sneaks up on you. Like when you look at it, you're not seeing, oh, this is the speed control model that I have to prep for. There's a lot of different things that are actually going to be here between Stab, Icy Wind from Greninja, Tailwind from Dragonite, Tailwind from Gliscor, Icy Wind from Squirtle, and you have to kind of be ready for all of it if you don't want this team to outspeed you.
Yeah, I agree. This team has threats all across the board. Greninja, Entei, Ferrothorn is a great Fire, Water, Grass. Ferrothorn's gonna be such a bitch to play against with the supporting cast. Other than that, yeah. Like, once again, similar to the Garchomp thing, Gliscor can't really click EQ for free, but it doesn't matter as much because it's a Gliscor and not a Garchomp. But yeah, I think this team is gonna be really terrifying to deal with on both sides of the board.
I'm gonna come in here now, I guess. So I do think this team has very strong Pokemon together, and I think the fast mode in particular is what drew me to this team with Gren, Gardevoir, plus Entei. These mons just hit like trucks, and I don't see teams wanting to switch into this shit. I think the where this team really got me though was the supportive cast. I think while this team support is very spread out and it might be hard to bring, it's all there. The Tailwind we mentioned, there's 2 Tailwind setters and they both aren't going to come to the same games because they both share the same weakness. You have really strong like taunt support under Drapion. They have the fake out and the follow me from Squirtle. You have the Intim Snarl spam from Luxray. Like all the support here is very well thought out, and I think this team's really good. The typings as well. This is probably one of the strongest what the fuck am I trying to say? Strongest typed teams. Like it plays really well around typing synergies.
Yeah, I fucking love this team. This team looks like it's going to be so much fun to use. And I'm like, personally, if I were in Strife shoes, I would be stupid excited to use this. I think Gliscor is definitely a mon that sort of felt like it didn't necessarily fit as much on the team, but it's like the only mon that, like, in my mind, doesn't really feel like it has as much of a role. But I think like even then it definitely does. Like it's a Tailwind mon. Like you have 3 Tailwind mons. None of them are like the most amazing Tailwind mon, but each of them definitely can work as a Tailwind mon. Luxray for 8 points with Intimidate, Snarl, all that it can do is really, really nice. Squirtle, obviously the GOAT. Mega Gardevoir, Greninja, Entei just alone make up an insane amount of offense, and I'm honestly surprised they were able to get all three of those. And Ferrothorn just, it can last. It can just fucking last.
Yeah. Great team. Moving on to another cringe team, Hopeless. This guy, you may not be aware if you're in the audience here, but he was planning on drafting like some sort of like weird gimmicky team and like copying some like trainer.
That's Cynthia team.
It was going to be Cynthia or fucking Blue or something like that. And so halfway through the draft, he got sniped to hell. He pivoted his ass out to pulling out this broken ass number 4 in the power rankings team. Actually really, really impressive work. And he was able to style a little bit with some cool picks like Gibrota, the Goat Togepi, and the massive Goat Grookey. One of my bigger concerns with this team is that you have 4 times weaknesses with the Breloom Flying type, the Swampert Grass, Genesect, Fire, and Megatancy Steel, and Togepi, your redirector, does not resist or have an immunity to any of those. But overall, this team is still very strong, which other people will talk about.
Yeah, this team is very strong. Mega Diancie is such a great Mega. Aerodactyl is honestly a very underrated Tailwind setter. Being base 130 speed, you're usually going before everything. So you can get your Tailwind up for some of your threats like Xurkitries and Genesect. Even if you want to do turbo stuff like Breloom and Swampert, you potentially can with a great Tailwind setter in Aerodactyl. I think Aerodactyl is very underrated. I think it's going to be a great core piece on Hopeless's team. And yeah, it's definitely a scary team to face.
I'm gonna get in here and talk about Mega Diancie. I think this mod is so good. And
Mommy.
I used it in DMAX, of course, but I think that it's even better in NoMax. It gets a lot of really good util. It can on this team, it's able to function in multiple ways. So first off, it can just be that fast threat that this team gets that Tailwind for if it just wants to break stuff. It can also just support this team by boosting its. Thank you for naming it Mommy Dancy. It can boost its defensive and its Spadef with like Diamond Storm, Light Screen. It can Encore stuff into Protect, but it can also do the Trick Room stuff on this team because this team's Trick Room mode is very strong at the same time as the fast mode. And I think this team in general has very strong modes with very good neutral pieces that function in both, and I think it's really scary.
Yeah, kind of just agreeing with that. Mega Dancey's fucking insane. I love Mega Dancey so much. I used it in the Surge off season. I had a really, really good time using it. Wow, that's a very tiny Mega Dancey.
I couldn't fix it.
The number of quad weaknesses on this team sort of makes me laugh. I don't think that's going to be like as much of a hindrance as I think some people might think, because surprisingly enough, the quad weaknesses that they each have actually sort of match up with each other pretty well. But I think that this team personally just looks very fun. Togepi is really good. I wasn't super certain about Wishy-Washy, but Hopeless told me the error of my ways. So now I'm understanding that Wishy-Washy is the GOAT.
Peace.
Gibrota is just good. Cool ass Mon. I really love Gibrota. And then otherwise, like the top 5 are just gonna be super, super fucking cool to see. I think they each have like really, really awesome potential.
All right, and now we're in the top 3. Number 3, the coach with the bronze, stinky, smelly boy himself, Vinny the Weenie. This team, you know, it's interesting that this team is number 3 in our power rankings because just like a lot of the other ones we've had, it has a lot of really strong strengths and a lot of very clear flaws. And it shows you how close of a pack this was and how all of the coaches really did draft such great teams. But focusing on this draft specifically, what this draft excels at, I think more than anything, is the crazy versatility that it has. A lot of these Pokemon here are able to be offensive and defensive, like the Rotom, like the Aegislash, like the Slowking, and perform so many different roles. Obviously, Whimsicott has every move in the book. Persian has a bunch of different cool stuff. Wartortle is a great dedicated redirector who can also fucking Shell Smash and pull off offensive stuff like that. And the mons that don't have a lot of versatility, like the Chomp and the Urshifu, are crazy strong and things you have to be prepared for.
Yeah, this guy did not just say the base 65 special attack mon is gonna click Shell Smash, but I'll ignore it. Other than that, I think Persian is a great value pick. It's amazing support. That shit don't die. unless you got some strong special attackers, that shit is not dying. Urshifu is an amazing Pokemon. I love Waterfu more than Darkfu, in my honest opinion. Megatron's a great mon. Once again, I mean, Megatron can click Earthquake next to Rotom, which can click Discharge, which is really great. Disquake is so nice. And his Trick Room counters are not that great, but they're there. Whimsicott is great to counter Trick Room, and so is Slowking. And Aegislash can function fine in Trick Room, so he's definitely got a well-rounded team here. It's going to be very tough to play against.
So I guess I'll do a little tidbit on my team. I think my team is pretty strong. I think I definitely went a little bit too much on the box checking method. I think out of the league, you'll find that my team is one of those that you're not going to find it missing like a key piece like Tailwind. You're not going to find it missing the Trick Room mode, but you're going to find it missing in elsewhere. And I think that could probably cause some problems. I'm going to end it off on Trapinch is the GOAT. I brought it in a mock this season. No, it wasn't a mock. It was a pre-match. If you're expecting it to come more than once, GOATed Mon.
Why the fuck are who asked nobody fire flying types?
Yeah,
That's
the
whack.
default.
Locked up for T-Flame, and so when it has to default.
Fair enough. So I'm definitely not going to be like projecting upon my own team and Drought on this a little bit, but I think that Urshifu R Whimsicott is super based, and I think it's an awesome grouping of 2 mons. I also very much like Urshifu R just as a mon itself, and I think it's going to be really, really fun to use instead of Urshi S. Like, both are really cool, obviously. And then I just do like what this team poses in general. I honestly really like Mega Garchomp here. Mega Garchomp feels like a really, really good mon. Like, obviously, like, Rotom Heat is really... It's kind of the same issue as when we saw Garchomp on one of the prior teams. I forget which one it was. It was on Miso's team. There's only, like, really one mon here that wants to be next to Garchomp, and that's Rotom Heat. But admittedly, those two do sort of work with each other pretty well. Wow, there's a lot going on this page. The team does lack a little bit in terms of some special offense, in terms of like Rotom Heat and Slowking are really the only two like immediate special offense mons, but I don't think that's going to be like the biggest hindrance. Wow, there's so much going on this page.
Sorbet bitches, and then there's nothing there because he gets no bitches.
But yeah, that's all of my my thoughts for the team. I think that it's going to be a very
Yo,
very
Vinny,
fun
you
team
better
to use.
nickname that Rotom Heat. The right nickname. You know what I mean?
Anyways, let's move on to our number 2 coach, taking the silver, Mr. AC. This team has 4 fake out users, and all of them are good. And in this format, there's been so many coaches who drafted like 1 fake out user or no fake outs, and fake out is the most broken shit in the game. So just right off the bat, that makes it instantly a classic. But when you go deep on it, this team has its fundamentals down pat. You got a beautiful Fire Water Grass starter core, plus the mythical Zero Aura, super styling, great for YouTube thumbnails. But then, you know, all the pieces are really effective. With your Mandibuzz Tailwind setter, your great breakers with Prim, Infernape Superior, this super versatile first pick Zero Aura, which can be support with fake out coaching. It can also just do crazy damage. Oftentimes running Adamant or Modest can do setup sets, can be bulky, can do whatever. And some great low tiers finishing out at the bottom.
Yeah, I agree. This team is very lit. He's got the... Okay, he does have the starter Fire Water Grass. I was thinking, are these all starters? And they are all starters, which is pretty sexy. Zero Aura is a Goatmon. Fake out and then just like fast as shit, annoying as shit. That thing's fucking crazy. Zero Aura is great mon. Mega Elix is a pretty it's a budget mega for this team, but I think it fits really well. And just like having to be able to stop that top 4 with the support mons in the back is just going to be near impossible for some teams.
I'll add on to this. This is probably my favorite team. I think again, like I mentioned before, with Strife's team, this team's typing wise, it's just so well put together. But I also think this team has 11 mons that are all bringable. But the thing is, it's not really forced to bring any of them. Of course, it wants to bring in strongest mons, but because it has, for example, the 4 fake out users, it has multiple trick rumors, it has all these support options that are spread out between its pieces. It's not forced into bringing anything like a lot of these other teams are, so it can be really versatile. Obviously, there's gonna be some of these pieces like the Fur and like the Manimuz that are gonna need to come if you won't follow me in Tailwind, but I think this team does a good job not needing a lot of those things things every single week, and I think it's going to be a very scary team to face.
Yeah, this team's cool as shit. That was like my first thought when I saw this. I thought this team is so fucking cool. One of my sort of gripes with it was the fact that there's not like, it's not that there's not breaking potential, but there's not like an insane amount of immediate breaking potential. Like there are a lot of good offensive threats, but nothing is like just instantly gonna be like, oh, you die. Like Mega Steelix at 125 being the highest attacking stat, and like Prim at 126 is like understandable. In terms of special attack, I think that the team might run into some issues with that. But otherwise, I think this team just like kind of can just like sweep.
Yeah. And that I think one thing, I don't know if this was mentioned, but like the one issue that I would have with this team that I want to throw on as well is that Mega Steelix is a great Trick Room Pokemon, but your Trick Room Sitters, Miss Magius and Behem, both of whom are not great at doing that. So I would look at maybe the one change being maybe condensing Miss Magius and Behem into like one Pokemon that can actually consistently set Trick Room and not get destroyed by a knockoff Zarude or something. Anyways, moving on to our
I'll actually make a
final-
suggestion before. Musharna, I believe, is undrafted. If you wanted to make that a Musharna.
Ooh, that
Oh yeah,
could push this team to number 1.
Although I will say I'm a big fan of the Behem.
Musharna's also a lot more expensive than
Yeah,
Behem, but
you
yeah.
gotta make it.
With Miss Magius as total points, and if you wanted to get rid of Lot, for example, and change that into something else, it's fine.
True.
Anyways, speaking of our number 1 team, if you've been doing your math, you should know by now that it's Big PP!
Woo!
Coach that we all know and love. And this team has Big Daddy Incineroar. Not the most loved Pokemon in VGC draft, but in this no max format, this thing has proven time and time again to be unmatched in supporting capabilities. And does it support its team? Hell yes, it does. Because this team has a great Tapu Fini, super bulky, super strong, crazy powerful Mon that benefits so much from that fake out that Incin does. Gallade and Thundy being just a great duo of a special attacker and a physical attacker, being able to take great advantage of Incin, lowering the opponent's stats to be able to stick around for a few more turns, maybe get up a nasty plot and or a Swords Dance, or just go to fucking town taking stuff out. And one more thing I'll add before I pass it on is that Mega Gallade, it's one of those Megas you don't really see a lot in VGC, maybe in older gens, but it is crazy fast, it's crazy strong, and it has every supportive move in the book. Every weird thing that you might want from a Pokemon, this base 110 speed Pokemon is going to be able to do it.
I agree. Alright, so in regular VGC, I love Incineroar. Incineroar could grab me by the throat and toss me around and do whatever he wanted with me. But in VGC draft, I fucking hate Incineroar. This thing sucks, in my opinion. But I will give it the plan. He did manage to build around it very well. It's got such a great defensive core in terms of Incineroar plus Tapu Fini. It's a great core. I think those two, just like defensively, is going to be super annoying. Another gripe I have with this team is Caparajah and Mudsdale. I feel like they're the same Pokemon in different fonts. You know? They kind of do like the exact same thing, but they're just both a different type. But even then, they both get like coverage moves to cover for each other. So it's like, they kind of feel like the same Pokemon to me. And other than that, I love this team. It's really good.
One moment for me. So first of all, I'm going to say, if you are seeing PP anywhere, please go and ping him and tell him congratulations.
Are you going to continue talking?
Sorry, I was just trying to insert a PP chair into the PP Pokemon slot. So I think this team is insane. It literally, again, it checks every box, just like a lot of the teams we mentioned before. Like my team checks all the boxes, but I think this team does a significantly better job at it. It doesn't really have any of those holes that a lot of these other teams has. It has it fills all these support options with its reliable support mon Incineroar that gets the fake out, plus it combines with the Snarl stuff and the Intimid one with just, it's so good. Fini with that is just so disgusting. And then, like we said, the offensive pieces and Mega Lade not being able to get fake out or Intimid is just crazy. Thundy actually works on this team. He has the good Tailwind setter, Nervombi, that's the speed, plus his Trick Room core is really reliable. I'm a big fan of Copper specifically in this case. Yeah, just crazy team.
Yeah, no. This team, like, overall just looks like fucking fun as hell to use. And this is coming from me, who despises using Tapu Fini. But like I think that everything just like has a very good role in this team. I think the only gripe that I really had, what the fuck is happening? I think the only gripe that I had with this team, really for the most part, was I didn't love. It's maybe this is like unbased in terms of actual like fact, but like just Thundurus T and Electabuzz as the what the fuck feels weird just having those two electric types, but I like obviously understand what the hell are you doing.
I had to reload the page for some reason. I got an error.
But you put a picture of a dick chair.
I can see everything. Oh, none of the images are loading. No.
Going off the rails. Oh my god.
You know what? I'm happy this isn't in the vid. Yo.
Anyways, I think Mega Gallade is just going to be an incredible Pokemon. I think especially at 15 points, that thing is probably a little bit better than 15. I think we might have underrated it. The Trick Room mode obviously has a lot of legs to stand on in terms of Copperajah and Mudsdale and Exeggutor, all being pretty solid in Trick Room. Not having, I guess, the most consistent like mono Trick Room setter. Like you have Gallade and you have Eggy, which are both like pretty good at setting Trick Room. I'm not gonna like front. So like maybe like you don't have as much like Trick Room support, but what the fuck? You don't have as much like Trick Room support, but you definitely have like really solid Trick Room offense, as well as Speed Swap with Rabombi. Will be really cool.
I got one thing to say about this team.
Yeah, go for it.
This thing gets 8-0'd by Life Orb Clefable. That's it.
Okay, buddy. Nice try.
Wait, bro! My Life Orb Clefable rolled through SPS. Don't act like that's not a threat. This thing gets 8-0'd. If I had a Life Orb Clefable, I would 8-0 the shit out of Plant.
Okay, well, people
you
don't give a shit about SPS, so yeah. One thing that I think we forgot to say in our review of this team, and one more thing that I just wanted to add is that it does only have 9 Pokemon, which is not the end of the world. I think there are some people in this call who would advocate for quality over quantity.
Bro, if your mine is less than 8 points, get it away from me.
Downgraded Pokemon 1 or 2 points and gotten a couple 1 or 2 pointers that would have added some additional versatility and surprise factor that this team lacks. But still, broken team. Piranha Plant proving once again to be a phenomenal drafter. But you know, even this team, not that much crazy stronger than even some of these teams lower down in the rankings. So it truly is a situation where anyone can win, and it's going to come down to not just the strength of these drafts, but also how well can these coaches build? How well can these coaches play? Will they ask me for prep support? Will I respond to their messages? And that's really what it's going to come down to. But I think that is about it. If anyone has any last words for the WPF audience at home.
No, I got nothing. Thank you guys for watching. You're still in here.
Yeah, hey, like and subscribe to Radlove's channel.
Oh yeah.
He's gonna do all the work of editing this together, and he did all the work of recording it and uploading it. So, big props to him.
Ooh, yeah.
Make sure to smash that like button and subscribe for more great VGC content.
And make sure to hit the bell to get those.
Yeah, hit that bell icon, get them notifications. Tell your mom, tell your dad.
Make sure to comment hopeless is stinky in the.
Yes.
Yeah, everyone comment that.
Yes,
if you watch the video this long, make sure to comment hopeless is stinky.
All right. Thank you all so much for watching. Keep an eye out for drop PRs coming up soon, and we'll see you later.
All right. Peace out. Where's the fucking stop recording?